In this example, I'm going to show you how you can use Ideate BIMLink to create new types and then use those types to swap out existing instances for new types. In this case, we want to create some additional rectangular footings, as you can see here, and swap them out for the new ones based on, let's say, our analysis software. To begin this process, I'm going to go to Ideate BIMLink. You can see over here I have no links. I'm going to start off with a couple of our pre-configured links. I can navigate to the structural folder if I want to. So in this case, I can come down here to structural links, and in this case, I'm going to do a search. And what I'm going to look for are the words foundation. And in this case, you can see we have both the types and the swap. We'll start off with these links. I'll select them both and hit next. And here they are. Let's start off with the types. We're going to create a couple of additional types. You can see we have 16 structural foundation types in our particular model. And in this case, we're interested in adding a couple of rectangular footings. Now, in order for me to create some additional footings, I probably need to add the thickness parameter to this column. To do so, I'm going to come into search and type in thickness. And you can see we have a few of them here, but this is the thickness parameter that I'm interested in adding. Now you can see we have 5 by 5 by 1 and a 6 by 6 by 1. This is perfect. I'll hit OK. Now I'm going to come over here to the foundation swap, and I'm going to have a look at this link. You can see in this particular link over here, we have some basic information like levels and phases and the mark value and the family and so forth. However, there are 553 elements, and really all I'm interested in doing is swapping out some of the rectangular footings. If I go to show full preview, you can see how long this list happens to be. But in this case, I'm only interested in using the rectangular footings. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to filter this list by the family and type that contains the footing rectangular. So I'll come over to family and type. I'll change this condition contains to and make it footing-rectangular. You can see now we're down to 35 elements. These are the ones that I want to focus on. Now in this case, I want to identify the footings to swap out based on coordinate points. However, if you want to identify them by element ID number or mark, you can certainly do so. So what I may do is change the sorting and remove the parameters that are part of the default link. And instead, I'm going to sort it by the X and then by the Y. That'll help me identify these footings a little bit better. Now that I've edited and added some information to both these links, I can now export them to Excel. I'm going to hit the export button for the types, and instead of exporting them as two separate Excel files, I want to export them as two separate worksheets within one Excel file. So I'm going to change the name of this file name. In this case, we'll call it Structural Foundations Edit. What that does is it's going to take the structural foundation types and put a worksheet inside of that Excel file. Before I open the file, I'm going to hit Done, and I'm going to take this swap and I'm going to export it into the same Excel file. This will not overwrite the Excel file, rather it will insert a new worksheet inside of that Excel file. Now I can open that Excel. Once in the Excel file, you can see I have the structural foundation types and the structural foundation swap. Now I want to edit both of these links and then import this data to update the Revit model. In this case, I'm interested in adding a couple additional types to the footing rectangulars. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert a couple of rows of data. Now what I'm going to do is in the element ID column, I'm going to type in the word new. I'll go ahead and assign it a type mark. I'll take the footing rectangular and fill that information down. That way we add the new types to this family. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is just copy this data over here. I'm going to paste it in these two fields. And then what I'm going to do is make some minor changes to the names. I'm going to go ahead and create a 3-foot depth and a 4-foot depth. This came, let's say, from my analysis software. I'll add the 3-foot and the 4-foot over here. Because these have the word new over here, this will instruct BIMLink to generate the new types upon import. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to come over and do is do my swap out. Now, one of the things I want to point out over here is you can see that I have a drop-down list under the family and type. And what I can do with this drop-down list is swap out any of these types with new types. This list is actually part of a BIMLink export in which you can export with drop-down values. This drop-down value list can be found over here, and BIMLink automatically generates that drop-down list and makes it available to pick from this list. What I do want to do is I want to add those new footing rectangulars to the structural foundations list. Since I added 2 of them, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this data and come down a couple of rows and paste it once again. That allows me to insert this information in here. What I'll go ahead and do is copy to clipboard again and paste these 2 over here. and then I'm going to change this to the 3 foot and 4 foot. It is critical that you get the naming exactly correct. Otherwise, if you do a swap out and the names are not correct, BIMLink is going to error on import. So now that I've created these two, I can do a swap out over here. And if I come down here and pick from my list, you can see I have the 3 foot and 4 foot. In addition to that, you can see the rest of the list remains intact. What I'll go ahead and do here, just for simplicity's sake, is I'm going to change all of them out for the 4 foot. It's going to go ahead and fill this down. And that's going to take all of these 1 foot depths and change them to the 6 foot by 6 foot by 4 foot. Now that I've done my swap out here, and I've created my new types here, I'm ready to save this information and bring it back into my Revit model. Now that I'm back in Revit, I'm going to go back to BIMLink, and I'm first going to bring in the foundation types and then the swap. If I bring in the swap first, it won't know what to swap out with because the new types have not been generated. So first I want to bring in the foundation types. I'll select it and go to Import, and I'm going to select from this Excel file, which is a Structural Foundations Edit, and I'm going to hit Open. When I do that, I want to pick the worksheet called Structural Foundation Types. You can see over here the two new types that I created in the Excel file have now been highlighted, and when I go to Import, you can see that the new types have been created. Now that process has been completed, I can now do my swapping. I'll go ahead and select Swap and hit Import, and again I'll select the Foundations Edit, I'll hit Open, and in this case I'm going to hit the swap. You can see the list of the family and types, and in this case all of them have been swapped out. And keep an eye out over here when I hit the Import button. You can now see that all of the structural foundation rectangular footings have been swapped out. It's important to note that while I'm demoing this process for structural footings, this process actually works for many other categories within the Revit model. It's best to hit the New button over here, select the samples, and just type in the word types. You can see that we have links created for many different types. In addition to that, you could look for swap. And you can see over here that we have some links created for swap. This will allow you to take some of these other categories and do a swap out as well.